I'm David Cromwell, and welcome to the podcast. We've been talking about gas stations, and if you've been following, you know what that means. To some people, reflection isn't particularly a hard thing, it's more of the how. What exactly should I do? Or maybe you fall under the group of people who know that modern day living is a bit fast paced, and you're looking for how to strike that balance of moving forward but not losing yourself in the process. In this episode, I share an approach to reflection that I think you should try from my experience with my own media gas station. It's no fluff, just real stuff, and a very practical way of trying out something that has changed my life, and I know will change yours if you listen with your heart. So, with that said, I'm David Cromwell, and I believe in the virality of thoughts and the power of conversations to shape how we live for the better. This space is where those conversations happen and a home to people who are on a journey to truly live the way we were created to. Welcome to this safe space. Welcome to Cromwell's Harbor. All right, hi everyone. Welcome once again to the podcast. So I'd like to know how you guys are doing. How are you doing? How how are you feeling this season? So for me personally, I would say this has been quite interesting period. It's been quite swell actually. I found myself smiling a lot more in this period. I think one thing I realized was I just need to be a bit more grateful because there's that version of me or that side of me that always likes to like do things the best. So continually there's always that sense of like the things that are outstanding. I always have a clear picture of what is left to be done to get to 100%, right? And sometimes it can be, it's healthy to just be able to look back and enjoy your life and enjoy what you have. So I've actually been practicing gratitude a lot more, my relationships, and resting a lot more in God. And so that has actually made life actually very, very sweet for me, interestingly. I realize when I look out for things to actually be grateful for, I actually find them. And they're actually a lot. I think, like, I just realized sometimes how, maybe, I don't know, I'll say, would I say, uh, would I say unhealthy? Or I don't know, like the standards were a bit too high that I actually lost sight of a lot of good things that I do in my days. And in general, it's actually been quite nice. So we're going to be getting to an episode where this episode is me sharing something that changes how I see the world and helps me put things into context, helps me recenter, helps me just be better, helps me even be better in every other area of life to be able to be sure that I'm not addressing symptoms, but rather the root cause of stuff. It helps me also chart my course, like as to like what I'm doing next. So it's very dear to my heart, and I think if applied rightly, has the potential to change your life. So before we dive in, let's make a pact. Yeah. So if you smile or have an aha moment, or you have a heartwarming moment during any point in this podcast or at the end or all through actually, let's make a pact that you won't do it alone and that you find someone that you can share it with. So is that a deal? I kind of need you to say it out loud. Yes. All right, so if you can even keep scores, right? How many times you had those moments. So if we have a deal, let's get into the episode. Here's the approach that I think you should try. So during my media gas station, the first thing I tried to do was try to reflect and remember the year. And the reason why is like I said, like mentally active, I'm always thinking about what's the next thing. So I think it was just really healthy to just pause. And a really nice healthy thing for me was just to pause and read, go through my journal and go through my gallery. So just read through pictures. I noticed that a lot of my female friends do it. And I think it's a very good quality. I always used to look at them a bit like, different. Like, Maybe they're just going through a phase and they just need to look through stuff to feel good again. But I never realized just how powerful it was because it just helps you connect your entire journey together. It just helps you put, you know, pieces and be able to, a lot of times, like, someone will say, "Oh, look at my picture back then." I've realized that all those Snapchat memory and those photo memory features. It's only my female friends that I've seen that actually use it. Like, if I open my Google Photos and I'm seeing, here you were in 2020, I'm just like, bro, now I'm in 2025, let's move. Right? Let's move. But then I think it's particularly important because it just gives you the opportunity to connect your journey. Because like sometimes we get excited, or we have deep moments, or we just have, you know, there's a phrase in a John Bellion song that I really like, and he says, "Conversations with the devil, and he's telling me, what's the point of making memories if you can remember them? If you..." Sorry, I can't remember the exact way he says it, but conversations with the devil, and he's telling me, what's the point of making memories if you won't remember them when you're 70, right? I think that phrase, obviously, like, it's not that deep, like, you will remember them, right? But, and the answer he gives is that when you're making memories because you remember them when you're heavenly. But I think you can also remember them when you're in heaven and also remember them when you're on earth, right? When you give that opportunity to just really be able to connect, I think there's just a rich way of being able to feel, moments that you had 20 years ago because you never just in this like continual moving forward agenda, right? Let go of them because you're moving on to the next thing. I think just being able to connect your journey because like these moments, they're particularly interesting when you actually look back on them. Like maybe moments at the turn of the year when you said, "This is the year that I'm not the same. I'll eat my cake and have it. No longer a millionaire mindset. I'm a billionaire mindset. I take what's mine and I take what's yours too." Right. But jokes apart, like remembering those moments when they just, like I said, they just help you connect your journey because what's the point of living if you just keep on doing stuff? I think it also makes you just realize just how much we are actually not so different. I think one of the most interesting things about starting this podcast that I've seen is that I literally have moments where I scrap recordings and I re-record certain parts. And then I listen to part of the recording that I cut. And I'm like, okay, let me re-listen to the old recording. And what I said in the new recording is exactly the same thing I said in the previous one that I cut out. Like I think it just helps you appreciate just how deep it is to be human. Like this was what I felt, this is what I was thinking at this moment in time. And I think it's just a very beautiful thing. How you can put pieces of yourself together. Moments where it was very crystal clear who you were. Maybe you had these epiphanies and you're like, man, I'm never doing this again. When you got tired of being tired. Or a beautiful moment that you even shared with someone. I think there's benefit in being able to just take a step back and just relive your life again. Relive your life. I think I like the way that sounds. And it could also be a cure sometimes too when you feel like your life isn't going the way you should. Why the way you should actually. You just get to just remember that you felt that way multiple times, or and it wasn't all that, or you even get to remember that it's actually more going right in your life than you actually think. So relive your life. I like that. I like how that sounds. But unrelated, but closely related stuff, or unplanned, or unscripted, but closely related, is that a friend gave me this tip. So we're in this hangout BTH, and he said that so he wrote an email to himself, and then he sent it to his future self. So you can schedule an email to your own self, but send it like a year after. So write your worries, your concerns, your prayers, and things you're grateful for, whatever it is I want to tell your future self, right? And he said that he did it, and when he received the email, he just laughed. Like, is this what I was thinking about 1 year ago? I did it as well, and I also laughed. I did it. That was last year. I did it last year. So, give reliving your life really gives you that opportunity to put things into context and recenter us. I think that is something that I feel should be an element in our culture because we have so much things now to capture moments, but do we really like, is it only our hard drives that get to actually live our moments, or do we get to relive those moments, right? So yeah, so for you, it could be anything. It could be going to a particular place. It could be, just trying to just sit down and remember and retrace your journey. It could be going through a gallery. It could be reading through charts. It could be reading your journals if you journal. It could be even having a conversation with a friend. So I want you to make this yours, right? It doesn't have to be exactly the way, but the heart of this part of what I do is being able to relive your journey. Yeah. Then I did something that I call under the hood, right? And what I do with my under the hood is like similar to what happens with a car. If the car is having issues, they open a bonnet and they check what's happening with the engine. Uh, if your car is overheating, you might not be able to check what's happening with the engine just yet. You might need to wait a bit, but exercise the fruit of the spirit. But yeah, like so yeah, like I did that and just trying to trace how I feel. So, and this is particularly important because especially when you're a Christian and you're used to, how do I put this together? So when you're someone who walks by what you see, but more by what you don't see, right? But many times what you don't see actually influences what you see. You can sometimes have a very weird relationship with your feelings, right? Sometimes if you're in a Christian space, you're probably taught to maybe not to shut down your feelings. We don't work by feelings. You probably have heard those kind of phrases, but I think those things are a bit dangerous when they're out of context, when you don't put into context the fact that God created your feelings. Um, Even God feels things. All right. So feelings in and of themselves are not bad. And many times I realize that even with the way I work, the best way to actually solve my feelings is to understand them rather than trying to shut them down. When I try to shut them down, it's like you're trying to tell a small baby to shut up. He just keeps on crying the more. You hold him out and they start crying the more. Like, I don't do these things. I'm just saying things that I think I've heard. I've seen other unhealthy people do. I say other, like as if I'm one of them. I've seen unhealthy people in culture. Maybe unhealthy is a strong word, but just people using unhealthy ways to try to calm children down. And that typically never works. It never works, right? So I've just realized that with my feelings, that's just how it is. If you hmm yes, I remember this really amazing phrase. I just remembered it now. And it was Rich Wilkerson that had it. He says, if you don't have a life of outlets, you will have a life of outbursts. And that's really what this under the hood is for. So I think I'm doing good as a man in touch with my emotions. I think I am. Um so literally like I'm quite self-aware. I think I am actually. So I would you know like, why am I angry about this thing? Why is this thing taking me off? Why do I not feel like doing this? Some things some people I wanted to. I'm just wondering, do I want to say this or not? Oh yeah, yeah, it's a safe space. I'll say it. So I have a community of people that I'm growing with outside of pod, right? And a good number of them are part of people that I work that share this space with me. And there was a particular period where I was just like, man, I just wanted to just oh man, I just pack everything down and just like, man, just run away to Cuba. just like just hearing the responsibilities of it was just making me just want to just take off. You just start running. You don't even know where you're running to. Just go somewhere where they don't know you, and things are a bit calmer. But try to trace where that's coming from, where's that. And from many times because you've not maybe listened to your feelings for a while, and then it piled up. It's just better to choose a life of outlets instead of outbursts. Then the third thing that I try to do is I try to take inventory of what's happening in my life. So just be in touch with, different areas of my life. This is like what's really happening. Then I then take a look around what's happening in the world around me and what the church or what the world needs. Right. So this is predominantly because I just try to keep. I feel like a lot of things that I'm to do are going to be a lot of leadership in a sense. So I always like to just have a feeling of where the world is going. So I like to just, excite myself by thinking that way. In my career, I think it's healthy if you're working 9 to 5. I think whatever your career path is, I think about what the best people in your field will be doing in 5 years. What exactly are and many times it's not hard to do. And I think that's the privilege of living in Nigeria. If you're not in Nigeria, sorry, you can find another way. Maybe you want to look at the very best of the very best, right? The guys that are leading fields. But in Nigeria, I just have to just really look at what other people are doing in developed nations. You usually have like a 5 to 10 year gap before things that are already predominant in the West or in developed nations come to us. So if you are literally the quickest to copy and paste, many times it works for you. But it's obviously it's a bargain, but you try it out, right? So, but I think the principle really is this to have an idea of where your career is going because many times people that can spot these things and prepare themselves in advance are the ones that tend to lead the change. So that's a useful tip I think you should use. And then I do a look ahead, right? And that's the fifth thing that I do or that I'm doing. So in some areas of life, I think I already have this completed, but in others, it's still like a transitional thing, right? Um, so I do a look ahead, really, and you know, look at things that I want to now be doing. So I look on the backdrop of the man that I've always known myself to be, and um, like, am I being that man? Why am I doing things I'm doing? And what are things I need to start doing to be able to kind of like course correct? So I think those are things that really tend to help. So please take this, and make it yours. Really, the principle really is like, where am I, right? What's happening around me, and where am I going? So you don't, like I said, I'm probably a broken record when I say don't be legalistic about it. I don't like. I just feel the need to always say it because I feel like legalism has this way of sucking out the life of things that should be beautiful. Like sometimes, if you cannot finish it in one sitting, like guy, just stand up, go and watch Netflix, man, or go and do something else. Go and talk to a friend. Go and pray. Go and do something else. Like you're not sinning by not holding yourself by the neck to conclude things. Conclude things on the spot as sin. Because sometimes starting is a win. All you need to do is just ensure that you have a trail that would make sure that you continue and that you finish. But it can be a little step like day by day, but it's better done at a slow pace than rushing yourself, not finishing, and then condemning yourself like the rest of the way. So sometimes like starting is a win. It's just trying to just make sure that you can do it step by step to just make sure that you actually get to the finish line. So here's a not so novel idea. So if resets or reflection in general has the power to refresh, to recenter, why keep it for only one time of the year? Like the principle, well, here's another even way of seeing it. Why, like the principle itself, like what exactly is powerful about reflections? And what I mean is that when we get the heart of what is really important about it, we then realize that it can exist in various forms. It doesn't have to look a particular kind of way. So think about it one more time. Why keep it for one time? Or some people don't even do that at all, right? But if it gives you the opportunity to run at your best, think about like what percentage of your best you're currently running at. All right. So the thought then becomes like, how can I create that system where I can keep in touch with what's happening on the inside and also the outside? How do I strike that balance of moving forward, but taking out time to take a step back? So I'm not just going through the motions, but I'm truly living. So I set out on this podcast journey because of, I felt like I said at the beginning of this episode and every episode, that thoughts really can change how we live. Conversations really can change how we live. And it's not just changing how we live, it's changing how we live for the better. So when we spot things in culture, we can look out and say, I think we're losing out something in our generation. So let's talk about it. That's really like sort of like when I say another way of saying the intro, right? And the current pace that the world moves at, if you're not intentional to create that balance, you would live a very, you would not live a, you would not truly live. Um, you would not truly live. We weren't created to move only at the pace that the current world is moving. So moving forward is not the problem. It's just never getting the opportunity to slow down and be in touch with yourself. So I think it should be a regular culture. Have your mini timeouts every week. It doesn't even like, don't be religious. It could even be as the occasions demand. Right. It could be at big decisions where maybe you feel crowded by all the options. It could be when you feel a bit alone. It could be when certain emotions are so strong. Um, it could be, when you feel low or you just feel like you're just living and you're going through the emotions and you don't feel like your heart is alive in what you're doing. Use the things that I've shared, add the element of what works for you, and do it as often as your heart needs to. Please do. All right. So that's a wrap. And I'll end the episode this way. So I once heard that there are no secrets, there are just world class basics. And you'd be shocked just how much change when you just choose to make out a lifestyle out of these world class basics. And I think one of them is reflection. I've shared what works for me, and I know it will work for you. And so remember, it's all a thing about community. It's not just someone talking. So as you use this, I actually would like to be a part of that journey, right? And let me know how it works, all right? I actually would love to. So now back to our scoreboard. Remember that scoreboard? So how many times did you have a heartwarming moment, an aha moment, a laugh, a smile? Think about it, and I'm sure you hope you have your score. And I'll share it with as many people. And I'll ask this extra thing. Share with me too. Let me be one of those people. All right. Community is a circle, and I think when that circle is drawn, it comes back to me too. So please share. So ask your questions, share your additional thoughts or things that you feel like we should talk about on the pod. And let's keep this community going where we're on that journey to truly live, having conversations that shape how we live for the better. So I hope you love this episode. Listen as much as you need to. See you next time at the Harbor. Bye.